Now this is a pretty simple one, and I probably don't need to introduce much here, so I'll go ahead and keep this short. If you're new, I like darker anime, usually with a philosophical twist, so if you're looking for anything like that, then this might be the list for you. Also, I'll have the name of the anime appear first for a few seconds before anything else, so you can use the chapters feature to skip ahead if you want to avoid spoilers for any of the series we're talking about today. That's about all, so let's get into my favorite anime of all time. Number 5, Death Note. As somewhat of a hipster jackass, I almost didn't want to put the most popular anime of all time on my list. But as I looked at my top 10 and struggled with which one to bump into the first spot of this list, I thought, which of these would I want to watch again the most? And Death Note narrowly won that contest. While Death Note has its flaws, like its rushed but technically perfect final arc, it's almost indicative of what's special about anime as a whole. It's just a kid with a notebook, but he becomes the de facto god of his new world with his real god of death sidekick who was actually in control the whole time but just didn't do anything with that fact because he was bored. Everything is as dramatic as can be, from chilling moments that make you hate the main character, to potato chip cravings, to probably the most earned death in all of anime. There's something exceptional about that level of dramatization that manages to push past being cringily cheesy and into a new plane of just excitement. That's what's special about this anime to me. Most of this list I'll be talking about the cost of idealism or wishes or other strong thematic tales, but despite having those things as well, Death Note is amazing even outside of those things. Yes, it's very much about right and wrong, the subjectivity of justice, and the devotion and frustration of those who see themselves as righteous. But it's also just entertaining all the time. It masters a pacing per episode that speeds things up to a lightning pace before slowing them down and giving the viewer time to consider and reflect on everything that just happened. From the first battle between Light and L to the last and everything in between, this is the formula for success. When you pair well-developed messaging with a thrilling yet easy to understand plot and those accentuating moments of drama, you deserve to be the most popular anime of all time.
And what if I was Vash the Stampede?
I've always chosen the right path.
Number 4, Trigun.
I'm very sorry that I didn't die.
If you showed me many of the early moments of Trigun and told me it'd be in my top 5 list, I'd be convinced that you hadn't met me even for a moment. When I first started watching it, my honest thoughts were, oh, this isn't gonna be for me. The anime opens on the absolutely ludicrous and legendary outlaw Vash the Stampede narrowly avoiding death time and time again, while also stuffing his face full of donuts and giving us some of anime's best faces. It feels like it's about to be a very anime. A goofball main character who lucks himself through everything in unexplained ways, chasing food and beautiful women while adventure finds its way to him out of his control. But then it starts to show something different. The first episode maintains its casual tone. The second drops it for a moment, the third for more, and so on. Eventually, the moments that used to be laden with funny faces and quick jokes are instead serious looks that flip the script. Vash isn't just some wanderer who finds tough situations and lucks out of them, he's something much more. He seeks out these situations where he can help. He uses years and years of training and skill to complete his tasks, not luck. And all the jokes are just a veil to try and cover the darkness he carries with him. He wanders because he can't trust his own body not to destroy everything and everyone around him. Vash, on the surface the epitome of a classic anime protagonist, is actually quite the commentary underneath. He maintains the usual morality found in main characters, that they must never kill and maintain absolute good at all times. But rather than just exploring that, the anime comments on the cost of such a mentality. The ridiculous situations he gets out of are the result of refusing to kill the villains. It feels like no one should be able to escape from these moments because they are, in fact, impossible for humans. The more we see of Vash, the more we see that no human could ever bear this cross. The isolation, the physical destruction, and later the mental as well, when there is no other option and human life is reduced to a simple cost and benefit. A forceful confrontation of everything Vash worked against that will make him either crumble or reaffirm his costly ideals. And this is accentuated by his sometimes companion Wolfwood, through whom we witness what happens when someone else tries to follow Vash's lead even once, as the realist pays the cost of idealism. This slow flip of the formula that saves its true colors so they can develop into something amazing is something that represents the best of the 90s, and out of all the classics, it makes Trigun my favorite.
can do is cry on my own.
Number 3, Madoka Magica.
And right now, this is the happiest moment of my life.
You know an anime will be brutal when its creator is nicknamed Butcher, and Madoka Magica is no exception. While it takes the form of a simple and cute magical girl anime at first, at least somewhat given this kind of obvious cold open, it quite quickly devolves into a depressing journey about the cost of wishes. When we think about what we want most, do we really know how much it would take, or why we want it? This is what every character experiences in the anime. Sayaka wishes for the health of her unrequited love, Kyosuke, hoping that an instant fix will turn him into a better person who could finally love her. Instead, it lets him keep on the path of ignoring her and focusing on himself as a purposefully unlikable character. But then, he also has no obligation to love her, and he doesn't even know what she did to make a wish come true for him. She can't control what he does, only what she does, yet she made this wish against multiple warnings anyway. Refusing to confront her own selfishness, she devolves into madness and becomes the very thing she had the power to fight. Her mentor Mami used her wish for survival, but this doesn't exclude her here. It doesn't matter if the wish is granted by some supernatural alien or not, it just matters that it's a wish. What she desires is friendship, isolated for years because of her survival. So she makes her work look glamorous and exciting, drawing Sayaka and Madoka into a harsh world. And just when she finally gets her wish, it doesn't matter anymore. In her joy, she lets her guard down, and her wish leads to her end. Homura uses her wish to turn back time again and again and again and again to save the only one she cares about in Madoka, and this gesture of care turns her into a cold shell, not even able to love the reason for it all. And in the end, she still loses her friend. No matter how hard she wishes, could she really save someone from a fate like that with willpower alone? And Madoka is the only one with a successful wish, one that still costs her life, at least on Earth, and what went into this? Endless time looping that results in nothing more than continuous destruction and mental anguish and their own deaths again and again and again. But these are just the situations that Madoka makes her wish around. It's not something she's really doing for herself. Is this the message of it all, that the only wish which worked was entirely for others and it took the most time and consideration? Is this what it takes to not be selfish, or do wishes simply exaggerate that awful quality at times? And you know this is a good anime because I used up the entire time rambling about thematics. God damn it, safe to say this is some classic Urabuki.
A time machine?
Don't tell me you're broken.
Number 2, Steins
So
Gate.
not fair.
High five for chaos and destruction!
Steins Gate is the anime I was halfway through when I thought that this channel would be done forever. I can still remember the feeling of the day I had to drop it, and probably always will. Even with that and the goofiness and the clear signs of multiple endings from its adaptation, it's one of the anime I didn't have a single second thought about including. It's similar to what I said with Trigun. Those lighthearted elements charge forward, getting you to lower your guard, only to gut punch you with serious emotion. Watching as Okabe, with his crutch persona of Hoenn Kiyoma, has to mentally destroy himself, leaping through time to undo simple text he sent to better his friends' lives, is crushing. He changes the world by accident in banal methods. I love how goofy the anime and its characters can be, because at the end of the day, they're just kids messing around with a microwave trying to live their lives, yet they manage to both destroy and save the world. It's partially about the dangers of science, how we trudge forward into the darkness of the unknown with a purposeful lack of morality, seeking knowledge for its own sake, following a path which has led to great advancements as well as countless lives lost. This is the power in these kids' hands, the ease with which they doom the world. But what gets them out of it, through the tireless effort of Okabe, is each other. The desire to maintain the lives they live as friends into the future through the cost and benefit of small changes with huge implications. It's easy to look back and see how things could be different, but it's dangerous to dwell on it, and even more so to act on it. Looking to the future is harder, but more rewarding. It gives us the chance to improve and grow, to see what matters and what doesn't. At the end of Steins Gate, these once near caricatures feel like fully fleshed out people, like friends I've known forever, because they learned these lessons and grew with us. And that is the mark of an amazing anime. Now, right now, there are two camps of returning subscribers watching this video, each wondering which will be left off the list, Black Lagoon or Psycho Pass. Well, Black Lagoon isn't on the list. and neither is Psycho Pass. Now, they would each be on this list, but I've talked so much about both of them, I wanted to give air to a few other anime. So really, this is like my top 7 anime, as those two should take the top 2 spots. And we'll make it a further top 12 by listing 5 honorable mentions as well. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is the highest rated anime of all time for good reason, and once I rewatch it, it will probably take one of these 5 spots. Its mix of science and faith, as well as the commentary on both, is well deserving of deeper thought. Cowboy Bebop is an exceptional anime that's known even to non-anime watchers, and probably one of the best somewhat darker anime to introduce anyone to the medium with. Its depiction of loneliness even in a group is nearly unmatched. Fate Zero is more of Uro Butcher working his magic, this time toppling the idea of perfect leaders and providing one of the best villainous protagonist arcs ever, not to mention targeting me directly with this man. Death Parade is probably the best 12-episode anime because it tackled an actually quite simple story about the human experience and just focused on that, and that singular dedication is something a lot of narratives can learn from. It's like a dream, knowing the inevitable is right around the corner, and even seeing it every day, but not acknowledging it at all. It's a completely heart-wrenching experience and downright amazing. And just sneaking in is Code Geass, and this is really just for the loosh. It was almost in Death Note's spot, but I don't really want to rewatch Code Geass as much because I really only want to see more loosh. And there's a lot in there that's thematically on point, but simply not well executed. But it's another case of the villainous protagonist that keeps it hanging on. Also, I was going to shout out a guilty pleasure anime for the person who requested that, but I actually have quite a few, so we'll save that for a dedicated list. But after a long ramble, let's get to our number 1 spot. Number 1, Vinland Saga. Vinland Saga is most definitely seemingly not my cup of tea. I hate war and weapons, I'm not much for Vikings or most things before the late modern period, and just to add more to it, I also hate kids. But when those things are used well as a framing to discuss themselves or elements of them, they become something much greater. Vinland Saga is basically a coming-of-age anti-war war anime. Young men wait in their villages, hoping some of their peers died at the last war so they can have the chance to go and die in the next one. The excitement they share is undercut by the grotesque scenes of gore. The strongest character we witness, Thor, dies early after giving up the harshness of war exactly because he gave up such a life and chose to live differently. He took a path that was physically easier, but harder in every other way. And then his son willfully misinterprets his will because the factors of the world they live in drive young men to death and destruction, even with a role model who's the exact opposite. Thorfinn considers himself somewhat abandoned by his father, and it leads him to darkness. And then everything I just said is doubled down on by the introduction of Canute. He's a meek prince concerned more with his faith than war, so his father sends him to his death on the battlefield to save his own name. Another child abandoned by his father, who then reflects on the reality of his situation to abandon another father, his god. Seeing a harsh world which breeds nothing but more death, even when kindness is shown exactly like Thorfinn, he decides that heaven has been made unattainable to man by a god which has never given them a true chance. So instead they must make it on Earth. And the parallels don't end there, as Thorfinn is also seeking heaven in a sense. The namesake of the series, Vinland, a mysterious land to the west that's warm and kind, free from war and slavery. 2 kids becoming men with similar goals and distinct attitudes and methods. Once season 2 comes around, we'll be able to see the fruits of those labors, who was right, who was wrong, and the cost of it all, and one of the things I'm anticipating the most. And this is only scratching the surface of the anime. I'm currently rewatching it to address some characters in depth, but I don't think there's a single moment of the anime that wasn't engaging while also maintaining such a deep level of development. Plus, the anime kind of called me out, I guess. Apparently I have a very specific look of favorite character. Well, there you have it, my top 5, well, 7, well, 12 anime of all time. Naturally, I had to complicate a very simple thing, and I spent most of the time here basically making miniature discussions, so I guess it wasn't too different from the norm. But let me know if you want to see the guilty pleasure list, which is basically anime I don't think are top 10 worthy, but I love like they are anyway. It'll be something to say the least. But that's for another day. I'll have a bunch of videos to further my points here in the description, so if you want a bit more on these anime, go ahead and check those out. And if you want more from future anime, from history to philosophy, click that little thing to subscribe. Hey, I'll have some some comments, some links in the pinned comment as well. Twitter, Discord, and namely Patreon, where you can be like these awesome people on screen now. Anyway, remember that you are important and you are valuable, and I'll see you again soon.